Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Low Key S.M.E. I'm with an awesome guest today, Ryan Koenigsberg of DNVR. Ryan, I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to hop on. So as many of you know by now, this is a podcast where I, interview people from different industries and kind of get an idea of their path to their current positions, kind of what drove them there. So what I'd like to do is start off by just having my guests, give a brief overview of themselves. Like I said, just as much as you want, as little, just to give an idea of who you are to the audience.
Yeah, I think for me, since I was a little kid, I always wanted to be involved in sports. And as soon as I realized I wasn't going to be good enough to play sports, I started looking for other avenues to get involved in the sports industry. And honestly, early when I was in college, I still didn't really know what I was going to do. And I got an opportunity to do an internship with someone who's become one of my really good friends now. And he was just like, hey, anyone who's looking to get involved in sports writing, like, hit me up. And I took that opportunity and just kind of ran from there, and have gone, to a point now where I've been able to surround my entire life around Denver sports. And that was a goal of mine since I was really little. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different, paths and bumps along the way. But for me, it was always just how do I make sports a part of my life? And I've been lucky enough to be able to do so.
Right. So the next kind of segue for every guest is usually if they went to college or however their early beginning looked, just kind of explain, college life, what you maybe participated in, what kind of aided you. You mentioned an internship. So if you could kind of just explain that, and then maybe life right out of college, what that looked like for you as well.
Yeah, for me, I think it was a little different than others because, like I mentioned, I got that internship, I think it was my sophomore year of college. And that was like right when I realized, like, oh, this is something that I'm really interested in. I really like this journalism thing. I had never liked writing, and I started really liking writing. And I went from an internship really just working for Will, who was kind of doing a bunch of different stuff too. He ended up getting hired by Rivals and Adam Munstertiger, who was covering the team, still does to this day cover the team for the Buffs. And they brought me over with them. And I learned so much from those guys, just really getting hands-on experience. They trusted me. They let me do a lot of stuff for being a young guy. So I didn't do a lot of the in-school kind of extracurricular. I didn't end up ever write for the school paper or anything like that. But I did end up switching my major to journalism because of all those experiences, and learned a lot in that. But, it's something I always tell younger people, like, there's no comparison of anything I did in school to the hands-on stuff I got doing those internships. And then for me, I was lucky enough that about a month before I graduated college is when Brandon Spano came to me with the idea for what was then BSN Denver, is now DNVR. And he said, like, hey, I'm really interested in having you be a big part of this. And he didn't even know. I was like, all right, well, yeah, after graduation, I think I'd be interested in doing it. He's like, you haven't graduated yet? I was like, no, still on my victory lap year right now. So I truly hit the ground running. The day after I graduated was my first full-time day working for BSN at that time. So it was fast, but I was taking a chance on something at that time that hadn't been created. And, and talking to my parents and people I trusted at the time, I was like, what better time than now to kind of take a chance on something? I'm fresh in the industry. The worst case scenario is I just get a lot of experience and move on. And obviously the best case scenario is I think the path we're on now, which is building this into something special.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's awesome. That's fascinating because, I'm fresh out of school right now. We're looking on like two-ish months, and I'm struggling right now. And I know COVID is weird, and being a sport management major doesn't make it any easier. There's not a ton of positions right now, but that's awesome that you were able to jump right out and find something. With your internship and how he reached out to you, and then you mentioned you didn't really do a whole lot with the school programs. Would you say it definitely is, who you know, not necessarily what you know. And I know that's pretty cliche, but you're just another example of, you didn't do the school paper, you didn't do all this, but you ended up where you are now.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for both. I think who you know will help what you know. And like I said, I was lucky enough to get hands-on experience right away because of that. But I didn't know Will before I took my internship with him. I just reached out to him on Twitter because he posted it out there. But because I was able to get that hands-on experience, I started rubbing shoulders with people in the industry and getting to know them and getting to pick their brains. And the way Brandon found me was because he reached out to the sports information director at CU and just said like, hey, are there any like young up and comers that you know of that I should reach out to? So it's definitely who you know, and it's super important. And the networking and all that, it probably feels like it gets overplayed a lot of time when you're in school and all that. But all it takes is one connection with the right person, and your name comes up in the right conversation. And I do believe a lot of it is not just who you know, but also just a little bit of luck. Just something kind of bouncing your way, and that's always a tough thing to hear when the things aren't bouncing your way. But I think I think it comes around for everyone eventually. And for you specifically, I think you're doing all the right things. And even just getting started on something like this, it can be really helpful in terms of building those connections. Meeting people. You and I have connected for a couple years now, so it's definitely who you know. It's also what you know, and like I said, I think who you know helps what you know.
No, yeah, they definitely can coincide in any industry. Kind of going off that as well, you just gave a lot of helpful information. Do you have any advice for someone who may not think they have the resources or they don't know where to start to get into the industry?
Man, for me, when it comes to, it just depends on what you're looking for. For me, I think honestly, like social media is such a great resource for building connections. One thing I learned when I was young, and I've tried to stay up with, is like people want to help you. People want to help people, and they're always willing to give advice. I mean, even you can go way up the ladder, and I know people that I'm friends with who have made connections with people at ESPN just by hitting them up in the DMs. Like, there's so many ways to build connections, and just we as a people are so much more connected than we ever were before, that I think that's huge. And then kind of like I said, with you doing something like this, I always encourage people, just create content, just create, because all this is, all you're doing is getting reps. And the more you create, the more you're comfortable talking to people, doing interviews, being in like a informal setting, but creating content at the same time, I think is so big.
Okay, yeah, I'm working on it myself. I actually just had Kyle Speller as my last guest, the PA announcer for the Nuggets. And
Nice.
like, obviously we've met, we've talked, and I'm comfortable, but that was like, I felt starstruck as even with someone as just a PA announcer. So yeah, there's always room to work, always room to improve. Um, can you kind of talk about the transition from BSN to DNVR, what that looked like, or what gave you guys the ultimate, leap and kind of just full sending it? Because obviously it worked out. It's great. So kind of whatever you can share about that would be awesome.
Yeah, we had tossed around rebranding. I just think we were starting to outgrow the original brand. We wanted it to feel bigger and be bigger. And so we started talking about rebranding. And obviously, we had started doing the shirts with a guy by the name of Eric Weedham, who we didn't know when we met him, but is like a branding and marketing genius. Like, he works with some of the biggest companies in the world on their branding and marketing. We just thought he was a shirts guy when we met him. But the shirts thing was like his ultimate side gig. And so we were lucky. I mean, it's just, again, a little stroke of luck. He started talking to us about branding and rebranding, and we finally came, started fall in love with the idea of a rebrand. We just didn't know what yet. Created a little Google Doc with potential names on there, and I actually wrote in DNVR. and I wrote next to it, like, spelled out a la ESPN. And no one, it didn't hit at first. Like, no one loved it. And I was like, man, I thought that was the one, but all right, whatever. And then one night we were just out drinking, and I turned to them. I was like, you guys really don't like DNVR, huh? And for some reason, when I said it out loud, they were both like, oh, when you hear it out loud, I kind of like it. That's kind of nice.
Yeah.
And it was like a light bulb moment. And about a week later, Eric sent us just like his early vision for what the brand would look like. And we were just like completely sold. We are like, that's it. And it was probably I want to say a 3 to 6 month process, just preparing everything. But by the time we were like fully in on it, we had a really good feeling that we had something good.
Yeah, that's crazy because I remember we had kind of, like I said, talked in the past, and I had a potential internship lined up with you guys, and then COVID happened. But I remember going to what was your office. Gosh, what is that off of, like Dual?
Yeah.
And I remember going there, and I was like, okay. And then I saw the big announcement and everything, and then to go into the bar for the first time and see what you guys had, come up with. It was incredible because I also remember seeing on Twitter, some just the hype building around it. And then when it finally launched, I feel like you guys are electric within the city. Definitely a fan favorite from what I've gathered. So I just want to congratulate you on that because I think, like you said, it's been working out so far. You guys took the chance and hit on that. So you cover the Broncos for DNVR. How long have you been covering the team officially now?
Yeah, I actually started covering the team in like week 12 of 2015. So right before the Super Bowl. So I got on the train right at the right time. And then of course it hasn't been quite as exciting ever since then. But yeah, it's been a long time now. A little over 5 years.
Yeah, because I thought I remembered you covering the Super Bowl. Obviously that's up there. Do you have a favorite moment that comes to mind just in your time so far, whether it be at training camp or covering a Super Bowl? Is there anything that stands out?
Yeah, all those events, man, those are the ones that are really special. The Super Bowl is unmatched for me, because that was like an 8-day experience. It's not just the game; it's the whole lead up, and you're, in Radio Row, like rubbing shoulders with Jerry Rice, and like it's that whole thing. And I was really young when that happened. It was, like I said, I just started covering the Broncos, so I was still like wide-eyed, like looking around. One of the cool moments from that specific trip was the first day of like media availability. I was going over to ask Von Miller a question, and there's like 50 people there all trying to ask him a question. And just like out of the corner of his eye, he sees me and he's like, hold on. This guy's from Denver. Like, he gets to ask a question first. And I was just like, oh yeah, there we go.
That's awesome.
So that was like really cool. I was like, oh wow, like I've only been doing this a few weeks. Vaughn already like recognized me. That was really cool. But just, like I said, the events, done a couple Pac-12 tournaments in Vegas. Those are always a great time. Did the Pac-12 championship when CU played in there. That was at the same stadium as the Super Bowl. So some good memories there. But yeah, those are the ones that stick out for sure.
Gotcha. So we kind of touched on it earlier, but you guys do a great job of keeping up with, the trends and everything. I've even seen, I think Brandon, I think you were in one of his TikToks,
Mm-hmm.
Just kind of always evolving, like I mentioned. How do you guys come up with ideas? Because I know you guys have different segments that are always being introduced, and what goes into that? Because obviously you can plan something out and there's a chance it could flop. Like, what do you guys look for when you're trying to create a new segment and try to reach a target audience?
Yeah, I mean, it all starts with like, where is this going to go? Is it a podcast? Is it YouTube? YouTube has been a really big focus of ours over the last 6 months or so. Is this a live show? Is it archived? That's kind of the basics of it. We start there, and then we're really lucky. You know, you work with writers, but it's not all writers. It's different. You know, it's like people like Eric, who's just a straight up creative. It's people like Adamades, who is really like just a super innovative media mind. It's Brandon, who's a business person. It's Lindsay, who's our sales director, who is just an absolute bulldog when it comes to that. And we're just lucky to be able to have like a meeting of the minds where we say like, okay, so for example, we did our Sunday morning NFL pregame show. We're like, okay, so we have this idea. We want it to be super laid back. We want it to be super fun. And in a year where people can't get together before games and tailgate, like we want to try and capture the energy of a tailgate in our live show. And so then we're sitting down with, 10 of us just rattling off ideas, and we'll come out of a meeting like that with like a list of 100 things we could possibly do. And then, we pick out the ones that we really like, we pare it down, and then you just start passing it around to okay, we need an intro video. Okay, who can execute that? All right, so now we have these segments. We're going to play flip cup or whatever it is, and, for us, the most important things are, how can we market it? How can we brand it? How can we sell it? And how can we make it reach people? And we just kind of go through that list, and we try to make it authentic. Like that's our number one thing, is like, we have to make it us. And that's why you see us let our guard down on things like that. And, we don't, if you're drinking on a stream, like that would have been so faux pas for a old school media company, but we're not trying to be that. When we first started, I think we were so worried about being respected by the rest of the industry that we wanted to be a lot more buttoned up. And over time, we just realized like, that's not us. So we should stop trying to be that. And we started really leaning more into what we are and who we are. And what we are is a huge group of sports fans who happen to know a little bit about creating content.
Yeah, and it's one thing to start a business and have all these ideas and put them into play, but I think the whole staff that you guys have created is just, it's like from the top down, everybody is just creative, engaging. I feel like they you guys care about the community, and you guys do a lot. At least I see Eric post, hey, I have an idea for this shirt.
Mm-hmm.
I need some feedback from the fans. And so I feel like you guys do an awesome job of reaching out and making your audience, your target audience, feel important, feel involved, which I think is awesome.
That's always been a huge part of just our philosophy, which was like, I always felt like journalists had a little bit of a bad habit of acting like they were standing on the pedestal, casting opinions down. And we just all like, it was just, we wanted to be the antithesis of that. We wanted to be the opposite of that. We wanted to be leaders of the community, but from within the community. Because again, that's where all of us come from. We're, almost, not everyone, but almost everyone who works here is from Colorado, from Denver, or, grew up loving the teams. And again, that's another thing that old school media doesn't like, that idea. For us, it's like that we want to lean into that. There's no reason to pretend like we don't care about these teams, because for some reason that's been an unwritten rule of media for a long time. Like, we want to be a part of it. And there's something else I wanted to mention that you touched on there. Talking about our team. It's a lot like sports, in my opinion. Like, you look at, I hate to use them as an example, but they're a really good example of this. You look at the Kansas City Chiefs. They've had the same coach in there for a long time. They've had the same offensive coordinator now for a good few years. They have their system in place. They know exactly what type of players work in their system. And that's exactly how we are. We know what we're trying to do, and we can look around the industry or outside of Denver and see a person and be like, that person fits our quote unquote scheme perfectly. We got to bring them in, and they're going to fit. And when they do, and it's something that they're passionate about as well, it's kind of a snowball effect.
Yeah, definitely. Like I've said, I appreciate that from you guys, just being authentic and getting everyone involved. I think that's super cool. And setting the bar kind of at a different level amongst media, just because I wouldn't say different, but it's just like a unique way to approach it, which I think has been very successful for you guys. So yeah, keep doing that. I can attest for many fans, we love just, being able to interact with all of you. It's pretty awesome.
Of course, man. We love it too. We really do.
So 2 more things before I let you go. If you had to guess right now who's going to start week 1 for the Broncos, and then 2, at the end of it, I like giving everyone, even though my channel's not that big right now, giving everyone a chance to plug something at the end, whether it be, an organization, a cause, the DNVR bar, like whatever you want it to be.
Okay. If I had to, put money on that, I would put money on Drew Lock being starter in week 1. I think the Broncos are playing this the right way. They want to explore the top level options like a Deshaun Watson or maybe even a Dak Prescott if he becomes available. Russell Wilson's name has been floated a little bit, although I think that's probably the least likely. But they know that if none of that works, they have a pretty good fallback option in Drew Lock, and they have time. With George Payton just signing a 6-year contract, he doesn't have to be in a rush to get everything fixed right away. And he can look at Drew Lock and say, okay, let's give this kid a chance. I'm still a Drew Lock believer. I think he can be a good quarterback in the NFL. I'm, of course, very also in support of the idea of going after Deshaun Watson. It's just, we'll see what happens with that whole thing. So if I had to pick, I would pick Drew Lock. As for an organization that I'm passionate about, the Humane Society is something that means a lot to my family and I. We've been adopting dogs from there forever. So that's one thing that I like to plug, is just if you're ever in the market for a dog or a pet of any sort, to check them out, because there's lots of cute little pups that need homes. And then the DNVR, we have a lot of different things. If you're a Denver sports fan of any way, shape, or form, we have something for you. We have the very specific podcasts on each team. We have the more broad podcasts like the Denver Sports Podcast. We now have our betting show. That's something that I've been putting a lot of work into over the last 6 months or so that we're really excited about. And I guess that'll be the one I plug the most. We just started doing it. So we have two different shows a day. We do a 10-minute quick hitter podcast in the morning that, we get into your feeds early, that if you just want the picks, you can hit them there. And then the more fun, unbuttoned version of that, we do at 4:00 on our YouTube channel, which is just us, having a lot more fun with our picks. So that's my long plug there.
All right, we're coming up on like 3:35. Can we expect to see that at 4?
Yes, we can. I'm walking right out of this room and into that room.
Sounds good. Well, that's all I have. So I will let you go prepare for that. But yeah, again, thanks for hopping on. Very insightful. Keep doing what you guys are doing, because it's awesome. And I don't see you guys slowing down anytime soon. So just want to say again, thank you. And that's been another episode of Low Key S.M.E. I will leave the description, or in the description, I'll leave a link to your website, the locker room, all that. So yeah, that's all I have for today. If there's anything else that you have, can go ahead. But if not, then that'll wrap things up.
Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for all of your support of DNVR. And my DMs are always open if you ever need anything.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you.